What's going on, Brian, man?
How you doing today, Chad?
Yeah, man. Any good? I had to be in jail.
Well, I mean, you're at the right place. So, no, we missed recording after the last.
I can't find a reliable host. Co-host,
I know.
man.
I'm sorry, man. Things came up. You know,
That's
life
understood.
happens. So,
That's right.
But we are back, and we haven't really missed much. There hasn't been a whole lot really controversial that's been on the last two meetings.
Yeah, so we're set the date. Today's the 21st, 22nd of 22nd?
21st.
21st? 22nd? 22nd. April 22nd. So we had a Board of Aldermen meeting yesterday, the 21st, and then the last time we did a podcast was the end of March, so we also missed, I think, the April 7th meeting, which was a shorter meeting. It wasn't, I'm trying to think of anything big that we discussed there, but...
Really wasn't anything on there that was... Yeah, it wasn't a whole lot this time. I mean, y'all are going through a lot of, like, I guess, year-end stuff, and I guess I'm assuming the reason you have 2 or 3 people speak from each department, each meeting, is so it's not so drawn out and long.
Yeah, so I think the mayor came up with that. Man, I think the first or second year we were in office was like 21, 22. He started bringing the department heads in to do a review of what they did for the previous year. And typically we do that right after December, but we had some other things going on. It kind of took some time, so we've backed that up a little bit. But yeah, you're right. It's usually 2 or 3 departments, and like the police department's a big one, so sometimes they'll have the whole the day to themselves or whatever. But yeah, and so if somebody really wants to look at some things going on in the city of Hernando, I think Austin Cardozi's presentation last night
Was really good.
with the planning. He put a lot of time into that, you can tell, and he talks about permits and how, you know, we may approve a bunch of subdivisions, but then the next year you're going to see the building permits because they're building the property, and so how that's all connected and some of the other things. So that's really, I thought, was interesting and probably worth going back and watching. So.
Well, his was good, and Jim Athene's was good too, because like she said some things last night from her side that I didn't really know. Like, I mean, like she said something about the farmers market having over 80 vendors. I was like, man, I didn't realize. Like, I've gone to the farmers market plenty of time. I didn't realize there was that many vendors there on a weekly basis. And then she was also talking about the water towers at the 10K.
So there's a water tower festival that's done by the Chamber of Commerce, but she was talking about the water tower 10K, what she puts on, and that thing's over 700 runners last year.
Well, from over 20 different states. That caught my attention. Like, wow, we got people coming to run in a race from 20 different states.
Well, I know it doesn't look like it, Brian, but I do run a little bit, and that's a big like prep race for St. Jude Marathon. So that's why you get such a big turnout there. And because Hernando, that's a pretty hilly course, a lot of elevation in it. It's a good training run for the half marathon.
Well, it's
or
a
marathon.
good thing for Hernando if you got people coming from 20 states.
And I tell you what, I've done a lot of races, and they have one of, if not the best, after parties with live music, and they auction off stuff, have food, drink. So they do it right there at the alley.
Yeah, my buddy Stephen Katz used to always come down from, he's the Hernando West guy from Pennsylvania, and he used to come
the
down
secret
for that.
guy with Hernando West.
But he used to always come down into town for that one event.
Sure.
Like, he was always coming in for that event.
Yeah, and it used to be, it would coincide with a festival, and I think the race has gotten so big that they it's 2 different weekends now.
Gotcha.
But it's a good race, and they added a half marathon to it last year, which is a pretty tough course. Actually, Austin got ran over at the race last year, so he's still kind of recovering.
I gotcha.
But yeah, she does a good job. There's she does a lot of things that we don't see, a lot of grants and things like that, and so her presentation was well. Also, the dispatcher, Miss Rosenberg, I believe is her name, talked about some of the things they do and some of the we're updating we got a grant to cover the cost of updating the consoles for the dispatch, and I think they're in the process of repainting and getting things cleaned up over there.
When she was talking about the texting 911 thing too.
Yes.
I knew we had that, but it was something I'd forgotten about. Mm-hmm. Like, so that's probably something good for people to know that is an option to text 911.
Sure.
Because I knew I guess we've had that for a couple of years now.
Yeah, I think everybody in DeSoto County. So just so you know, Brian, that there's a DeSoto 911 commission. Basically, it runs all the different agencies. Some counties have all their 911 dispatchers together. Ours is separate. Each city has their own with the county. But they kind of help them, and they kind of work together a lot on different things. They have monthly meetings, I think, and so.
Y'all talked about one of the things y'all did last night before we get into the only couple things that were controversial. I had a couple things. Like, one, y'all talked about the trip to DC, and not y'all because you didn't go on that trip. But one of the things that I found interesting, that I do find beneficial, because you know how I feel about that trip personally. I think it could be a little bit of a waste of money in my mind, but that the Hernando alderman that went and the mayor got to go to dinner one-on-one with Trent Kelly. And so I do think that is a beneficial thing, where they're the only ones that had his ear for an entire dinner.
Yeah.
Of course, it didn't do any good. We still don't have I-55 done, but we'll see if that happens in any time in our lifetime at this point.
Well, it ebbs and flows, and sometimes the Democrats are in power, sometimes the Republicans in power. So that's why it's so important. We have a midterm election coming up. Trent Kelly is on the ballot in November, and if Republicans lose control of the House, that's probably going to diminish his influence to get us. I think the mayor mentioned something about a fire station or whatever, or money for interstate. So all that stuff is relevant and important. So.
Right. And one question I had, and this may be a better question for the mayor, but when I watch the meetings, sometimes on stuff that's going to be a 7-0 vote or 6-0 vote in the case of last night, because Alderman Piper was not in attendance last night, but he'll do a roll call vote on some things when it's 6-0, but then other things that are going to be a unanimous vote, he just does unanimous. So why is it that sometimes he does a roll call and sometimes he doesn't?
Well, that's completely at his discretion. He controls the meeting. I think he may feel like somebody's going to vote no, so he'll do that. I can't speak for him, but that's typically why he would do that. Also, I think there's some things that, like I think with resolutions and with like agreements and things like that, you want a roll call vote. You want somebody to kind of, on the record say yes or no, so you have that documentation.
I was just curious. I thought about that last night, because like some of the stuff is going to be unanimous, and he'll still do a roll call, and then other times he doesn't. And I was like, I figured there had to be a reason behind that.
Yeah, you have to ask a better question for him, but maybe he feels like somebody's going to vote no, or it's going to be a little closer than you think, or whatever. So.
Well, and outside of that, I mean, y'all's meeting last night was really the only thing that was really had any controversy was y'all discussing ordinances and things like that. And I did take a few notes. One of the things I wanted to ask you about to get more clarification, if anybody was watching the meeting, one of the things that came up was data center zoning, which obviously right now is a big topic in our area with the big data center going in up there in South Haven. And Austin was talking about data center zoning and how we're going to structure that. And I don't know if you can explain it better, but I was trying to follow it last night, and I couldn't fully understand where he was saying. I know it has to go into industrial M1, but he was wanting to put some other restrictions or something on it, or...
Yeah, so I think Alderman McClendon brought this up with obviously the controversy that's going on with XAI doing the data center in South Haven, and there's also several across the state that seem like that's been a big influence in our state recently. And just plainly, Hernando really doesn't have a lot of property that would make sense for a large-scale data center. We don't have a lot of industrial zone property. And so what Austin suggested at the recommendation of our little ordinance committee meeting was, hey, let's just put a conditional use requirement on anything we consider a data center. And that's what we did last night, or what we talked about, is kind of defining what that is. And so now if you want to come put a data center, say, really the only industrial area I can think of is maybe over behind the jail area there. There's some industrial there.
Right. Well, you have Butch Davis's place there in Nesbitt, but that's more...
it's about built out now.
Well, and it doesn't look like an industrial area.
Right.
I mean, Austin actually used it as an example last night
Yeah.
on stuff he was talking about, and how nice that industrial area looks compared to what you would think of an industrial area.
Yeah, so I mean, the only thing, just off the top of my head, I'm probably missing some, is something like down McCracken there, that old, what was that thing, the old factory there, what's it used to be called, the pipe place or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody could tear that down and put a data center there. That would require them to get a conditional use, which is just another way. They have to come back in front of the planning commission and say, hey, this is what we're building. Do you allow us to do that?
Right, and then he was touching on the fact that they would need like water plants and...
Yeah, they would ask for, how much water you're going to use, because that's a concern, I think, in South Haven. And a lot of these things, not just I don't want to pinpoint just South Haven, but from my understanding, they use a tremendous amount of water and electricity to cool and run those supercomputers. So, but I don't think there's a place for that in Hernando. Hernando's not kind of set up for that. but you never know, and so it's always good to be proactive, I would think so.
Well, and then the other things, this was near the end of the meeting, y'all were talking about all these changes or things that we want to do in the city as far as zoning and stuff, and I kind of made a few notes, like with the sign ordinance. Y'all were talking about sandwich signs being okay now as long as they weren't blocking the sidewalk, and then the other thing that Austin said was on the weekends, big signs don't affect traffic, like it's not a distraction to traffic. And I was like, well, that's kind of comical. How can a sign decide if it's the weekend or the weekday?
Yeah, well, I think the reason, the rationale behind that is we don't have a 7-day-a-week code enforcement officer.
Right. Well, then that would have been a normal thing to say is, hey, we're not going to enforce it on the weekends because we don't have somebody to do it.
And so I think maybe there's an argument that maybe there's not as many people out and about. I don't know. I that's not my argument. I'm just saying I'm trying to rationalize what was done, what was said. But there's some vendors that use the sandwich signs, or where it looks like a T, or a pyramid or whatever, and they'll sometimes they'll have chalk on them and they'll set them out in front of the shop. And I think technically those were illegal.
Yeah, that's what I found funny is like that's illegal to put a little sign out that you're having a sale, sidewalk sale,
that's
or something.
Right. Yeah. And so some of that stuff gets kind of silly, and I don't think we really were enforcing that anyway. And so this is kind of cleaning that up. I think that's what he was mentioning. Also, something that I think Alderman Kitchens had been a priority for him when he got elected was to kind of get a little tighter definition of what a vape shop is, or a head shop, or whatever. And so basically, if 50% of your inventory is, I don't do the stuff, but whatever that's called, vape. Is it vaping powder or vaping liquid? Yeah,
the term used last night by Austin was a head shop.
Yeah, head shop. So if 50% of your business is those products, you have to get a conditional use, which I think we're going to talk about a conditional use in a minute with the liquor store issue. But you have to get a conditional use, which takes another step to go in front of the Planning Commission.
Well, and you kind of led me down to my next note was to get a better explanation. Y'all were talking about vape shops and cannabis stores and what the zoning was going to be on those going forward. And I didn't fully understand that last night, and was going to ask you today about a little bit more clarification on what the plan is. I know y'all didn't vote on anything last night, but y'all are advertising it to the public for the next 30 days. So that'll be out there. But what is it that we're trying to do with the vape and the cannabis?
So anytime we make a change to our ordinances, it has to be a public notice. You have to have a public hearing. So last night also was just trying to get, I think, clarification. Hey, these are the changes. Are y'all okay with making these changes? I'm going to put that into a document, and then we're going to advertise that for 30 days.
But what was the changes with the vape and the cannabis?
And so, and there's some confusion with this. When we allowed medical marijuana to be sold in Hernando, we put in some restrictions already. You have to be so far away from
right. I remember that
the square, kind of our downtown area. That's like if somebody's familiar with. You may help me. What's the new one? They just, I think, Apollo Hemp or whatever.
I have no idea.
Do you know the little, what used to be there? It used to be the burger place on the corner, that little shopping center right there, right past Jim Frank's office, and you keep going further down.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a hemp store there at the very end, because he has to be at the end, because if he's at the other side, he's too close to the square. So he's right there at the limit of how close you can be to the square.
Gotcha.
And that goes north, south, east, or west. So.
And what are we changing with that?
And so that's already in place. We're kind of just, and then we're taking the vapes, and making them require conditional use, like you would like a liquor store or something like that. Which basically, I think at this point in time would probably not forbid it, but I don't see that getting through this board anytime soon.
Gotcha. And the funniest part of last night's meeting was still in talking about the changes that we're proposing, that Austin's proposing, was I didn't realize that a neon sign could be so controversial in the town. I mean, it was a pretty good debate going on back and forth with that.
We had a quiet meeting. We got to talk about something.
I mean, I was sitting there watching. I was like, man, this is crazy that, like, I've never even thought about it, the neon signs that the open signs. I mean, I've got them at my firework businesses, but I've never even thought about that being a big deal. And that was like a 15-minute discussion last night, was about neon signs. And I will say, you did get a little snappy towards Alderman Miller last night near the end of that discussion. And the point that he was bringing up was actually a note that I'd already put in to ask you about today. I'm like, so what do we tell stores like let's say the craft beer store right there by the interstate that has several neon signs, been there for not 20 years, but 10 years, and you're going to tell them, oh, your signs were fine last week, but now you can't have them anymore. And that was the point that I think Andrew Miller was bringing up, was how do you go back and tell these businesses that have had them, now you can't do that? It was legal last week, but it's not this week.
Yeah, so that's why we put this in the paper, and we do a public hearing. So any of those people who are going to be adversely affected can come talk about it. But I think there was some confusion exactly what we were talking about. So, and this has only been in the last few years you've seen these pop up, because they were not allowed until we passed our sign ordinance. I think in 2022, I had to go back and look at the exact date. You couldn't use those things at all, so we allowed them to come in then.
Well, they were around before that. I mean,
They wasn't supposed to be.
Well, every gas station that I've ever been in's had them.
So most especially gas stations, will have an open sign usually, and then, I think the mayor mentioned that a lot of times these beer distributors will give them various Bud Light or Coors Light or whatever signs, and they put those in the window too.
Well, I texted a few of y'all last night about that. I was like, hey, can I get my pool house grandfathered in? Because I got 2 neon signs out here.
This is only for
so I'm going to
commercial.
I'm going to take down one of my neon signs at my pool house.
This is only for commercial, so you're good to go there. But certainly, this is not a permanent sign. This is just simply unplugging something and taking out the window. I think there's also an aspect of this that is safety, where you can see in and out of a store if it's being robbed, things like that has been brought up by the police department. And so,
and again, people that know me and you know me, that's things that, I mean, I'm making a joke about us spending 15 minutes talking about it, but I'm like, are we really that worried about a neon sign that we need to spend 15 minutes discussing them? When it's not really hurting anybody's business, whether they have, and it's not like it's tacky. I mean, I think most people, when you go places, you expect to see that kind of stuff. So it's not like it's tackying up the city or anything like that. But it was pretty funny to listen to the back and forth. And I think there at the end, you got, like I said, you got a little snippy when Andrew brought that up, and we're against it. So obviously, I'm more on Andrew's side of this argument than I am yours, but I was like, I don't know how you go into a business that's been operating for years and tell them you can't do this anymore.
Sure. Well, and I have to do a better job of my tone. I think sometimes I come across like I'm upset or mad. I was not. I was kind of halfway joking, but obviously it didn't come across that, because my wife said the same thing. And so, Andrew's my buddy. He knows that. So.
You owe him an apology. Just kidding.
Well, he's got the famous.
He's a big guy. He can take it.
Yeah, he's lost some weight. I don't know if you've seen him. He's slimmed down. Looks good.
So, but and Natalie actually brought up a good point when we were talking when y'all were talking about the neon signs, that most of them aren't even neon signs anymore.
They're different gas or whatever.
Well, they're not even neon. They're just lights, like basically LED lights now.
Yeah, and I think how they initially got started was, I don't want to call a specific business out, but I think there's a couple businesses that may have some of these hemp stores that also have like a marijuana neon thing in their window or whatever. I don't visit those places. I don't have my medical marijuana card. So
we actually do sell. Changing subject for a second, at our fireworks stores, we actually do sell sparklers that are a marijuana leaf.
Well, hey,
and they actually do sell pretty well.
if that's your that's your deal, man. It doesn't bother me.
No, it's just a sparkler.
Yeah, well,
just a marijuana leaf sparkler.
But that marijuana, that's a whole culture. That's a whole culture. So Willie Nelson, the Snoop Dogg, man.
Would you see? Speaking of, Snoop Dogg put a post out on Twitter for 420 with him with a blunt and had a party hat on and some glasses. He said, "How Snoop parties on 420," and then another picture of just him smoking. He said every other day of the year, but on 420 he's got a party hat on. So, but no, I mean, overall, the last couple meetings haven't really had anything major on them which is a good thing. I mean, it's good not to have controversy at every meeting, and I think the only thing we haven't really touched on from last night was, is her name Pam, the city clerk?
Pam Powell retired.
Y'all had a
March 31st. Yeah,
y'all did a little declaration for her, and I guess she's been the city clerk for the last 5 years or so.
She came in when we first all got elected and got our first meeting. She was not there. We were in the process of hiring her, so she's been with us all since we came in 2021.
Okay. Well, and
she retired. She worked at South Haven for years.
Is she the one that puts the agenda online?
She used to. Now Nicole does.
Okay, well, somebody needs to talk to Nicole because
You leave Nicole alone, man. I give her enough. I give her hard enough time already. Anyway,
I had the agenda pulled up last night from the city website, and it did not match what was being talked about in the meeting. And I will give you credit. I immediately switched over because I know you post it online, so I checked your Facebook page, and what you had on Facebook did match the meeting, but what was on the city website was some of the same stuff, but it wasn't going on the timeline. So I was like, what are they talking about now? This is not what we're supposed to be on.
Right.
And so anybody that's trying to follow along, which not everybody does, I'm probably one of the few that basically watches every meeting, but if you are trying to follow along, it was not correct on the city website last night. And that was about it. I mean, I don't have a whole lot else to discuss with you.
You want to talk about your liquor store?
Go ahead.
So there's a proposed. If you're familiar with their liquor store, there. I mean the.
Well, let's correct that. You said your liquor store. I'm not opening a liquor store for anybody listening.
Huh? Well, the ABC's Alcohol Beverage Commission. I think is what you only can have one. You only can own one liquor store in Mississippi.
In your name, right?
Your name.
Correct.
So
you could own one, and your wife could own one separately, but
yeah. But anyway, so there's a gas station that was built at Parkway and Highway 51, the corner there. It was actually zoned for a gas station like in 2007. They finally built it about two years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And there's 2 extra bays. And I'm gonna break a little news. One bay, the bay I guess would be that's the south side, is going to be a steak escape.
Oh, okay.
So
breaking news right here because I had not heard that. We're going to have a steak escape.
Steak escape, and I live right behind there. That's my area there, baby.
So we're going to have 2 steak escapes in town?
They're going to keep both of them open. I think this one's going to be, from what I understand, from talking to Austin, this one's going to have a drive-through window, going to have more of a takeout. It's obviously going to be a smaller store. So, and then on the northern bay that's a vacant, it says there's a sign that says Hernando Vape.
Yeah, that sign's been up for a year.
There's a group that is proposing. It's the guy who owns Spice World in South Haven. If you're familiar with I think it's an Indian spice place. I think he also has a liquor store up there, or had a liquor store up there. He is proposing to put a liquor store on the northern bay. So to do that in Hernando, you have to pull a permit, and then you have to go get a conditional use. So he made his proposal, pulled his permit, came to the planning commission for a conditional use, and it was denied unanimously.
Okay.
He has now notified the city that he's going to be appealing that.
Okay.
And then we'll have a hearing for that on May 18th. And all the residents affected will be noticed by the city. They'll get something in the mail saying, hey, you're within 200 feet of this place.
What's his appeal based on?
Well, I believe, and I haven't watched the meeting, and I don't try not to watch the planning meeting because that way I'm not a bias.
Clear mind.
But when I make my decision, but from what I understand from talking to Austin, I think there were some concerns about property values, traffic. The residents didn't want it. They don't want a liquor store right behind their house, things like that. An adverse effect to the community. So I think, was the grounds for their denial.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, not advocating for or against it, but you have a liquor store right up the road in town.
Yes.
And you have another one basically.
Brian, that was the other. So we currently have 7 liquor stores in the Hernando zip code.
In the city limit.
In the city limits.
And then you have one in Nesbitt, I guess, that's in the 5-1 zip code.
Well, excuse me. We have 7 in the city limits.
Okay.
And then if you count the one in Lewisburg, I think that there's some other ones that are close.
So we got plenty of places to buy your liquor.
Yeah.
But again, playing devil's advocate, how do you tell this guy he can't have his liquor store when there's other, a business is a business. If you don't want a business, I'll bring up Mexican restaurants. People complain about Mexican restaurants. Well, the best way to keep another Mexican restaurant from opening, don't go eat there. If you don't want another liquor store, don't buy from them, and they'll quit opening.
Well, and so not to get too much in the weeds, but there's also forever until I think 2020. With a court decision, cities could regulate liquor stores, and you have to go to get a conditional use, which is what was always did. From I think 2020 until it took effect July of last year, you couldn't deny it if they met all the qualifications set out by the state. And that's when you started seeing these things pop up.
Gotcha.
Cheers is for one that did not have to get approval from the city.
Because they met all the requirements.
Yeah, the state could not have, the city could not have regulations that were more stricter than what the state required.
Gotcha.
The legislature passed a law last year that took effect July 1 of last year that you can have restrictions that are more restrictive than the state requirements.
And that's where this is coming
So this
up.
is the first one since that law change that has to go through this process.
Right.
So,
and again, agree or disagree, it's kind of like the same thing with the neon signs to me. I mean, if I personally wanted to open up a liquor store, I can see where he's upset that you're telling him he can't have an opportunity to run a business that's a perfectly legal business. You know, it's like smoking in a restaurant. My whole thing with that, I love that you can't smoke in a restaurant, but if it's legal to smoke, it should be that person's right to decide.
you used to hang out at Love's back in the day, when they
back at Love or Coleman's Barbecue, man. Boy, if you went in Coleman's Barbecue just to get a to-go order, you had to go home and take a shower. But that was their right to choose, and it was my right to choose whether or not I went there and ate. Same way with a liquor store. I'm obviously one of these people that thinks the government's there for safety, protection, and infrastructure. Outside of that, stay out of the business of the people.
So
and
you're one of those that they have the core function of the government, and they shouldn't get outside the core function.
Well, but my point to that is, if you don't want 8 liquor stores in town, if everybody quit attending all the liquor stores and buying so much liquor, you wouldn't have 8 liquor stores, or you wouldn't have 7 Mexican restaurants. But if you walk into any of the Mexican restaurants on any given night, they're packed. So heck, I want to open one.
We're about to get another one.
Yeah, I heard we're getting one up at Delta Landing, correct?
I guess we can break that news too.
Yeah,
So.
I've been told through the grapevine that we will be getting a new Mexican restaurant.
Casa Mexicana is coming to Delta Landing.
Yeah, the same one from South Haven, right?
And they have one in Oxford, a really nice one in Oxford.
Yeah, and it's going to be it's going to look more like the one in Oxford, correct?
Yeah.
That's what I was told, is it was going to be designed more along the lines of the one in Oxford. So, and then there was some other restaurant I was told we were getting.
Jersey Mike's and Baskin Robbins is coming.
And Firehouse Subs.
I hadn't heard about Where's Firehouse
I was told
Subs?
Firehouse Subs was coming in over near Walmart.
That's going to be a Jersey Mike's.
Jersey Mike's. Okay, I was told Firehouse.
And what's cool, the mayor told me, is that the guy the guy who owns all the Jersey Mike's franchises is big into what's it called, Tunnel for Towers or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he's going to organize a 5K run in Hernando to raise money for that organization.
Okay,
So,
yeah. I actually contribute to Tunnels to Towers. I think it's a really good, really good organization.
yeah, this podcast has had William Brooks on it in the past, and he was given a home through that program.
Right,
So,
I do remember that. Yeah, so good things coming to Hernando, and you're going to have some different options to eat. Another Mexican restaurant, but more upscale, I guess.
a lot, and I'll answer this too while we're talking about different things coming. A lot of people have asked what's going in front of AWG. That is a sheet metal factory or company. They currently have an operation in South Haven across on State Line Road, and Elon Musk bought their property, and so they're building a pretty good size. Where they're relocating to Hernando with a pretty good size operation there. I can't remember how many square footed. I think it's 100,000 square foot building they're building right there.
Well, for all the people that tuned out because we were being boring at the beginning of this, we're breaking all kind of news here near the end of the show.
The Tractor Supply is coming.
It's opening,
you can see that.
Austin talked about that last night. Heck, it's going to be open by, end of June, July?
Yeah, there's a project at Getwell that you can start seeing coming up the ground now. There's going to be a Buffalo Wild Wings to go, a convenience store. I can't remember the other thing that's coming in there.
Yeah,
pizza, like a My Pies or pizza. They
I've
make
seen
their
the
own pizza
sign. They've
stuff.
got the sign out there.
So there's obviously some good things going on in Hernando. I know a lot of times we get bashed for, different things, but there's a lot of good things going on in Hernando now. Brian's sending out your water bill next month. It's going to be a little higher than usual. So
My water bill is going to go up, yes.
it's a utility bill, though. It's not
a
just
utility
water.
bill.
Not just
Well,
water.
I told my wife, don't be leaving the water running. She had the water hose going outside and walked inside and the water's running. I'm like, what are you doing? You're costing us money. But, one other thing I wanted to bring up real quick while we're talking about businesses coming to Hernando, and I haven't asked you this off air, so I'm interested to see your response to this one. In this one, the couple people I've talked to about it are really excited is I've heard we're getting maybe an Aldi in Hernando.
I don't think we're at the point we can say that's for sure or not. There's a piece of property that is a potential site for some type of grocery store.
Yeah, I heard that we had maybe having an Aldi coming in.
And I think Aldi may be a potential,
but
that is not
well,
for sure. That's a long way from being set.
Okay, well, I need to tell my wife that because she was super excited when I told her that.
I do think, just Chad's opinion, that would be a great business for Hernando.
Oh, yeah, and then where it's proposed to go, where I've heard it was going to go is there at Nesbitt. And, I mean, it's just a vacant piece of building there. It used to be a car dealership
I want to clarify
that
that is not a done deal. That is not certain. That is there's the property owner there has had some negotiations with several different people, and Aldi just happened to be one of them.
Okay, well, I'd heard the Aldi name, and I knew that would excite my wife because that's her favorite place to go shopping for groceries. So.
Yeah, but Hernando, we built a lot of houses. If you listen to what the planning director said, we approved a lot of subdivisions over the last 3 or 4 years, and so as we get those rooftops, that attracts the next spot, which is the commercial, and that's what we're seeing now. So,
and we can't attract a Chick-fil-A yet, though.
It's coming. Just wait. Wait.
Oh, I don't really have a whole lot else to discuss with you today, Chad.
Yeah, we're right at 31 minutes. That's a good little time. So,
well, hopefully, you and somebody can get in a fight next Alderman meeting where we'll have something to talk about. Maybe.
I don't know anything coming down the agenda. I guess we can briefly talk about.
And the liquor store is on the agenda for when for the appeal?
So they'll be noticed. I think it'd be the meeting on May 19th, I think, is when that will be heard.
So that'll be an interesting topic in a few weeks to talk about.
Yeah, I think they've hired a counsel to represent them, so it'll be a little more professional, I think, than what was done at the Planning Commission meeting. But again, there's some criteria you have to meet to deny something, and we'll have to see if it meets your criteria.
Well, and that's all I got for today, Chad. So if that's it, we'll catch you next time on Around the Roundabout.
All right. Talk to you soon, man.
Bye.